N64 is my personal favorite video game console. I have a lot of N64 games that I'm here to show off today. Be showing off a lot of my favorite games, more well-known games. I had a collection growing up of a lot of Nintendo and video games. I don't collect much these days, but back then I had around 76 N64 games alone was my biggest collection. And this particular N64 is my original N64 that I got when I was 2 years old. I've had it for over 25 years. 25 years is a long time. Thankfully, the N64 still works. It's a little rusty. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get it booted up. But I tried it out this summer, and it seemed to be working fine. The reset button on this N64 has not worked for as long as I can remember. Even at the age of 2 years old, when I got this N64, I don't ever remember the reset button working. But everything else works fine. Got the expansion pack, so you can play games that run much heavier processing power than the original set of N64 games that came out. The N64 was first released in 1996. I got mine in 1998. So, just wanted to show off my original N64 before we start talking about individual games here. Alright, let's go over some games. This here is Super Mario 64. This was one of the 2 launch games for the N64. All of my games growing up, I labeled all of them because they didn't have any end labels, which never bothered me growing up, but to a lot of collectors, it seems to be a bit of a pet peeve. As you can see, the label's pretty worn down. I've had this for a long time. Although it wasn't one of my first games, I definitely played it a lot when I was very young. This game is pretty surreal, looking back on it. The way you navigate the castle inside, how barren and empty it is. The game was a little bit harder than I remember. It's a popular speedrunning game, and they make it look really easy. Maybe I'm just getting worse at video games. I don't play much anymore. If we're talking about Mario games, we'll go through all the ones that I have at the moment. Sorry if this chair is a little squeaky. We also have Mario Kart 64. Super Mario 64 is the top-selling video game in N64 history. But Mario Kart 64 is the second top-selling video game in N64 history. It's definitely a fun game, but there was a couple other racers on the N64 that I preferred over at Mario Kart 64. But I really do like the music and the sound effects and the overall level design of Mario 64. You can choose between 8 characters, which doesn't seem like a lot compared to Mario Karts these days, but it's pretty cutting edge for the time. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Wario, Bowser, and Toad. That chair will probably squeak every time I reach for another game, but that's okay. I think we have about 25 games here to show. This is number 3, but number 1 in the Mario Party series. Started off a franchise on a pretty high note with this one. They'd barely tapped into what Mario Party was capable of when this came out, but still a pretty fun game to play with friends. I played this one a lot, but I definitely played Mario Party 2 much more than Mario Party 1. This one I've definitely had longer than the other Mario Parties. One of my oldest games for sure. Mario Party 2 I think is the best of the 3 on the N64. A lot of fun mini games, iconic moments in Nintendo history developed from this particular Mario Party game. Label's pretty worn out. My favorite level to play was always the Haunted Mansion graveyard type map. Space One's pretty cool too. On that note, we also have Mario Party 3. Some people would say that this is the worst of the 3 Mario Parties on the N64, but I don't think it was too bad. I apologize in advance if there's a glare coming off of the labels from the N64 cartridges. It's not easy to avoid. less freeform like the original too. Oops, sorry. This one's probably in the best condition of the three, though. This game, Paper Mario for the N64, is one of my favorite N64 games and my favorite Mario game on the N64. I think it's very underrated. Hasn't stayed as relevant these days as the other Mario games, but this one's a lot of fun. A lot of strategy involved. The sequel to this game, Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door for the GameCube, is even better than this one. It's one of my favorite video games of all time. One of my favorite GameCube games. But this one was a great start to the Paper Mario series. Although technically you could say that Mario RPG for the Super Nintendo was the original Paper Mario. But I've never played that one before I played this one or Thousand Year Door. Got the torn up label on the side. I think I bought this at a grocery store. A Mario game, but it's also just a game for all Nintendo characters and mascots. This is Super Smash Brothers. This is the original Super Smash Brothers, which started off a amazing franchise. Some would say technically this is the worst of these Super Smash Bros, but I think that it is probably one of the worst. But it still definitely holds up and it's still definitely fun to play. I played it a lot as a kid. Played it a lot at my cousin's house. And I think the sound effects in this game are iconic. Level designs, the fighting gameplay controls are a little more constricting compared to the other games, but this one was still pretty top-notch. Got Mario, Pikachu, and Samus on the cover here. I think on the official box art, it also included Link on the side. Some of the games developed by Rareware, starting with Donkey Kong 64 and the yellow cartridge. This wasn't the only game on the N64 to have a yellow cartridge, but it's certainly the most well-known yellow N64 game. I also played this a lot as a kid. Probably my favorite of the Rareware games. Although some people think that it hasn't aged very well, I would disagree. I think Rareware peaked during the 90s, early 2000s, when they were making games like these before they got bought out by Microsoft. On the back you can see the word Martell. I think I traded this game with a friend of mine from the neighborhood back in the day. It used to belong to him, but belongs to me now. Just a standard collectathon. 5 different Kongs in the game that you can play as. The last Kong you get, Chunky Kong, was always my favorite. Another one of the Kongs you can play in that game got his own game. Racing. I believe this came out before Donkey Kong 64, though. And this is one of the best racers on the N64 as well. I personally prefer this to Mario 64. Mario Kart 64. It has a whole story arc to it, and an open world that you can move around in. You can race in the game and move around in three different modes of transportation, including a car, a hovercraft, and an airplane. And there's a lot of different characters, some that were developed specifically for Diddy Kong Racing, and some that were made from other Rareware games or future Rareware games. One of those characters who was in Diddy Kong Racing had his own game before. This is BanjoKazooie. Also a really fun N64 game. Very similar to Mario 64 in all the right ways. It's Banjo and Kazooie, the bear and the bird. This was one of Rareware's first games for the N64, and they hit it out of the park. The music in BanjoKazooie is some of my favorite. I used to recreate the music on my computer when I was growing up. I still play some songs on my piano from this game. And if we're talking about BanjoKazooie, you also have to include the sequel, BanjoTooie. This game took everything about the first game and just added more to it. A larger open world, bigger levels, more tasks, more abilities, things to do. Some people thought that it was a little bit overbearing compared to the original game. I think they still have a pretty similar charm to them. I think I prefer BanjoKazooie just for the nostalgia factor, but this one is also a really good game. I think this one was harder than the original, to be honest. I'll try to get the games a little bit closer to the camera here. This game conquers Bad Fur Day, one of Rareware's most infamous video games. The N64 was primarily marketed to kids, but this game was a little bit more marketed towards adults and kids. More for the kids to play and the adults to laugh at all the jokes in the background that the kids don't understand. Conquer from this game was also included in Diddy Kong Racing. There's a lot of great jokes in this game, very profane and vulgar. Just the general attitude of a squirrel who drinks a lot and gets into all sorts of shenanigans. This is also one of the more rare and expensive N64 games out there. But you can always find a copy on eBay somewhere out there. Getting into some more classic Nintendo characters, we have Kirby 64 and the Crystal Shards. This is one of my oldest games. I also got this at a grocery store. The label for the grocery store is still there. And this is the first Kirby game I ever played. It's got great music, great level design, kind of cheeky and corny, but fun to play. This, I believe, was my first N64 game I ever got. And there goes my computer group chat going off. But Yoshis Story, very simple, kind of a quick game to beat, and there's only 6 levels. But I have a lot of memories playing this game. Being in a hotel for a couple months before I moved to my hometown. Just playing this in the hotel every day. I always wondered why they chose the pink Yoshi to be on the cover of the N64 cartridge when the green Yoshi is far more iconic. Let's hope I can finish all these. Oh. Sorry about that. Let's hope I can finish all these games before somebody gives me a call, because I have a friend who usually calls me around this time. But this is Ocarina of Time. This is the gold cartridge collector's edition, written on the label. This right here isn't my original cartridge of Ocarina of Time, but I have had this for a long time. Ocarina of Time is my favorite video game of all time. I played it since the age of 5, probably younger. I've beaten it probably 50 times. The music in this game is phenomenal and inspired me to pursue music in my average life. I still play music from this game all the time. One of the top rated video games of all time as well. I think it's aged really well compared to a lot of the other N64 games. A very popular speedrunning video game as well. So, of course, the sequel to Ocarina of Time was Majora's Mask. I have the collector's edition with the holographic label. This also isn't my original Majora's Mask cartridge, but the gold one, collector's edition, I think is far cooler than the original. But the gameplay is essentially the same between the regular and the collector's edition. It's really just the cartridge. This is probably my second favorite video game on the N64, and I'd say my second favorite video game of all time behind Ocarina of Time. Also, phenomenal music. Here we have Star Fox 64, another well-known, iconic N64 game, and N64 mascot, Fox McCloud. When this was released in Europe, it was originally called Lilac Wars. I think Star Fox has a much better ring to it. I didn't play this as much as Zelda or Mario growing up, but I definitely beat it once or twice. I think this game has aged pretty well. said you can type your, or write your name in here. You can see here it says Alexis, because this game used to belong to a friend of my older sister's. She gave it to us a long time ago, before the GameCube even came out. This game was always kind of glitchy. It would kind of freeze or crash on you randomly, especially when you're making your way through the gym leader castle. But this was my introduction to Pokemon. I never played the Game Boy ones before I played this game. And of course, we have Pokemon Stadium 2, which included the second generation of Pokemon, which also came out during the N64's popularity. This one is kind of a gold and silver type cartridge, similar to Gold and Silver, the two Game Boy games that came out to promote Gen 2 of Pokemon. I like this one better than the original, but they're more or less the same game, just with 150 more Pokemon. Next we have Pokemon Snap. I've also had this game for a long time. You basically just take pictures of Pokemon, report them to Professor Oak, and unlock new areas to take more pictures of Pokemon. It's a pretty short game. It was fun to play as a kid. I think it still has that nostalgic charm, but it's an alright game. Not really much to do other than that. And we also have Pokemon Puzzle League. This puzzle game format has been around since the original Nintendo, but I think this was the only game on the N64 to really have this sort of puzzle game style. I think it might have been one of the last official Nintendo releases to do something like that, but it was a fun game. This is more in line with the TV show, has all the characters Pokemon. It's a pretty hard game though. Once you beat the original story mode, you unlock like harder modes that are just impossible. Now this game is GoldenEye 007 for Nintendo 64. This is one of the most popular N64 games, and was a milestone in the first-person shooter genre of video games, especially in multiplayer. The multiplayer feature for this game was actually a last-minute add-on by the development team. They weren't expecting it to be as popular as it was, but this is one of the most popular and best-selling N64 games. I really didn't play much of it growing up, but when I got it, I understood why people liked it so much. Also developed by Rareware, same people who made Donkey Kong and BanjoKazooie. Here we have another game tie-in with a TV show. This is Duck Dodgers from the Looney Tunes series, with Daffy Duck playing a space cadet. I remember renting this as a kid and playing it a lot and getting stuck on certain levels. I don't think it's aged as well, but it definitely has nostalgia appeal for me. Kind of repetitive, but an interesting game for an interesting series. Alright, this is the last game I'm going to show you. This is Snowboard Kids 2. Probably not a very well-known game. It was produced by Atlas. It's the sequel to the original Snowboard Kids. But that one I didn't play as much as this one. I had this one at a very young age. This is probably my favorite racer on the N64 for no other reason other than nostalgia. The characters and sound effects and level design I always thought was really cool. Good music. And it also kind of has something of an overworld. You can upgrade your snowboards and